The fluorescent lights in the third-floor corridor flickered once, then steadied. Robert Hayes noticed. He noticed everything. That's what 12 years of night shift security did to you. Made you see patterns in stillness, hear trouble in silence. At 2:17 a.m., the hospital was never truly quiet, but it had a rhythm. Machines humming, footsteps echoing, the occasional alarm. Robert knew that rhythm, and tonight something felt wrong. He couldn't name it yet. Just a feeling. The kind you get when a door is supposed to be locked but isn't. When someone who should be walking isn't. Robert moved down the corridor slowly, his hand resting on his radio. He passed the ICU. Through the glass, he could see bed 12. An elderly man, 70s maybe, hooked to monitors. A nurse was adjusting his IV line. Everything looked normal, but Robert's instinct said otherwise. He kept walking, and the feeling followed him. If you've ever noticed something everyone else missed and wondered if you were wrong, stay with me. Robert Hayes was 54 years old, security guard at St. Catherine's Memorial for 12 years. Night shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., 5 nights a week. Before St. Catherine's, he'd been a police officer. 18 years with the Seattle PD. Good record, no major incidents. Just steady, reliable work. Until his partner was shot during a routine traffic stop. Robert had frozen. Just 2 seconds. But 2 seconds was enough. His partner survived. Barely. Paralyzed from the waist down. Robert resigned 3 months later. Not because the department blamed him. They didn't. But because he blamed himself. He couldn't carry a gun anymore. Couldn't make life or death decisions. Couldn't trust his judgment when it mattered. So he found work where the stakes felt lower, where hesitation wouldn't cost someone their life. Hospital security, checking IDs, walking rounds, breaking up occasional arguments in the ER waiting room. Simple, safe, controlled, or so he'd thought. Robert's routine never changed. Start at the main entrance, check the ER, walk the parking garage, move through each floor, ICU, maternity, surgical, pediatrics, then back down. Loop every hour. In 12 years, he'd called codes twice, found lost patients 3 times, stopped 1 attempted theft. Mostly he walked and watched and tried not to think about the 2 seconds that had defined the rest of his life. Tonight felt different. He couldn't explain why. At 2:30 a.m., he passed the ICU again. The same elderly man in bed 12. The same monitors. But the nurse was gone now. And Robert noticed something. The patient's breathing. It looked shallow, irregular. The monitor showed a heart rate, oxygen saturation, everything within range. But something about the way the man's chest moved felt wrong. Robert stopped. He wasn't medical staff. He had no training beyond basic CPR, but he'd seen enough in 12 years to know when someone was struggling. He pressed his radio. This is security. 3rd floor ICU. Can someone check on bed 12? A voice crackled back. What's the issue? Robert hesitated. I'm not sure. Just something doesn't look right. The voice sighed. We'll send someone when we can. It's a busy night. 20 minutes later, no one had come. Robert walked past the ICU again. The man's breathing was worse, faster, more labored. His skin had a grayish tint under the harsh lights. Robert's hand tightened on his radio. This is security again. Bed 12. I really think someone should check on him. The same voice responded. Sir, we have 3 codes running right now. If the monitors aren't alarming, the patient is stable. Trust the equipment. Robert wanted to. He wanted to believe the machines knew better than his gut. But he'd learned a long time ago that equipment didn't see everything. People did. And right now, nobody was looking. He stood outside the ICU glass. Watching, the man's eyes were closed. His hands lay still on the blanket, but his breathing, that shallow, desperate rhythm. Robert had seen it before. Years ago. In his father. The week before he died. Congestive heart failure. The doctors had said he was stable, right up until he wasn't. Robert made a decision. He walked into the ICU. Not supposed to. Security wasn't allowed in patient areas without escort. but he walked in anyway. He approached bed 12. Up close, it was worse. The man's lips had a faint blue tinge. His breathing sounded wet, congested, like he was drowning from the inside. Robert looked at the monitors. Heart rate, 72. Oxygen saturation, 94%. Blood pressure, 120/80. All normal, all within range. But the man was dying. Robert could see it. He pressed the call button. A voice came through the intercom. Yes? I'm in ICU bed 12. This patient needs help. Now. Who is this? Robert Hayes. Security. Sir, you're not authorized to be in that room. I don't care, Robert said. Send someone. Now. There was a pause. Then the intercom went dead. 30 seconds later, a nurse appeared. Young, maybe late 20s. Her expression was a mix of irritation and concern. You can't be in here, she said. Look at him, Robert said. She looked. Her expression changed. She moved to the bedside, checked the monitors, then pulled back the blanket and pressed her stethoscope to the man's chest. Her face went pale. She grabbed her radio. I need a doctor in ICU bed 12. Now. Code blue. The room filled with people. Dr. Patel, 2 nurses, a respiratory therapist. Robert stepped back against the wall, watched them work. Dr. Patel listened to the man's lungs. His expression darkened. Pulmonary edema, he said. Severe. How did we miss this? The monitors show stable vitals. The monitors are reading surface data, Patel said. They don't hear lung sounds. He's drowning in fluid. Get me 40 of Lasix-4 push. Start BiPAP. And some one-page cardiology. The team moved fast, efficient, practiced. Within 5 minutes, the man's breathing started to ease. The wet sound faded. His oxygen saturation climbed. 96, 98. The crisis passed. Dr. Patel finally looked at Robert. You called this in? Yes. When? About 40 minutes ago. Patel's jaw tightened. And no one responded? Not right away. Patel turned to the nurse. Why wasn't this flagged sooner? She looked at the floor. The monitors didn't alarm. We were running 3 codes. I didn't. Patel held up a hand. We'll address this later. He turned back to Robert. Your security? Yes. And you noticed this how? I don't know, Robert said. It just looked wrong. Patel studied him, then nodded. Thank you. You probably saved his life. Robert didn't respond. He just walked out. But the night didn't end there. At 4 a.m., Robert was back in the parking garage when his radio crackled. Security to administration. Now. Robert's stomach dropped. He knew what this was. He'd broken protocol, entered a patient area without authorization, interfered with medical staff. He walked to the administrative office on the 2nd floor. Inside, the night supervisor, Karen Mills, sat behind her desk. Close the door, she said. Robert did. Sit, he sat. Karen leaned forward. Do you want to explain what happened tonight? I saw a patient in distress. I called it in. No one came, so I went in myself. You're not medical staff. I know. You don't have clearance to enter patient rooms. I know. Then why did you do it? Robert met her eyes. Because he was dying. And no one else was looking. Karen was silent. Then she said, You put the hospital at risk. If something had gone wrong, if you'd made things worse, we could have been liable. If I'd done nothing, he'd be dead. Robert said, That's not your decision to make, isn't it? Karen's expression hardened. This is your 2nd violation this year. First was the incident in the ER waiting room. That was different. Was it? Your security, Mr. Hayes. Your job is to observe and report, not to intervene, not to play hero. Robert stood. I'm not playing anything. I saw someone who needed help, and I helped. That's it. You're suspended, Karen said. Pending review, 2 weeks, unpaid. Robert didn't argue. He turned and walked out. 2 weeks later, Robert returned to work. The hospital had conducted their review. The conclusion was bureaucratic and predictable. While Mr. Hayes's actions may have contributed to a positive outcome, they violated hospital protocol and created potential liability. A formal reprimand was issued. He was required to attend a training session on professional boundaries, and he was reminded that security personnel were not authorized to make medical judgments. Robert sat through the training, nodded in the right places, signed the forms, and went back to his rounds. But something had changed. Not in the hospital. In him. He'd spent 12 years trying to avoid moments where his judgment mattered, where hesitation could cost a life. He'd chosen security because it felt safe, controlled. But the truth was, there were no safe choices, only human ones. And sometimes, being human meant risking everything to do what felt right, even if no one thanked you for it. 3 months later, Robert was walking his usual route when he passed the ICU again. Bed 12 was occupied by a different patient now, but standing near the nurse's station was the elderly man from that night. He was dressed in street clothes, walking with a cane, talking to Dr. Patel. Robert kept walking, but the man saw him. "Excuse me," the man called out. Robert stopped. The man approached slowly. "You're the security guard," he said. "Yes. I don't remember much from that night," the man said, "but Dr. Patel told me what you did." Robert didn't know what to say. "I'm glad you're okay." The man smiled. "My daughter was here yesterday. She has 3 kids. I got to see them because of you." Robert's throat tightened. "I just did what anyone would have done." "No," the man said. "You did what most people wouldn't. You looked, and you cared. Thank you." He held out his hand. Robert shook it. "You're welcome." After the man left, Dr. Patel walked over. "He looks good," Robert said. "He does," Patel agreed. "Thanks to you." Robert shook his head. "You're the one who treated him. You're the one who saw him," Patel said, when everyone else was too busy looking at screens. There was a pause. Then Patel said, "I heard about the suspension. I'm sorry." "It's fine." "It's not," Patel said. "But for what it's worth, you were right. And if you ever notice something again, call me directly. I'll listen." Robert nodded. Patel walked away, and Robert went back to his rounds. The same route, the same rhythm, the same invisible work. But he wasn't the same, because he'd learned something that night. That being invisible doesn't mean you don't matter. That noticing things others miss isn't a flaw. It's a gift. And that sometimes, the most important thing you can do is trust yourself when no one else does. Years later, Robert still worked nights at St. Catherine's, still walked the same floors, still noticed things. But now, when he called something in, people listened. Not because of his title, not because of his credentials, but because he'd earned something more valuable than authority. He'd earned trust, not through grand gestures or heroic acts, but through quiet consistency, through showing up, through caring when it would have been easier not to. The hospital never gave him an award, never put his name on a plaque, never acknowledged what he'd done beyond the formal reprimand in his file. But the elderly man sent him a card every year on the anniversary of that night. Simple, handwritten, just 2 words. "Thank you." And that was enough. Robert Hayes never became a doctor, never went back to being a police officer, never did anything the world would call remarkable. He just walked hospital corridors at night, watched, noticed, and occasionally, when everyone else was too busy to see, he reminded people that the most invisible among us are often the ones who see the most. Because visibility isn't about titles or recognition, it's about presence, about paying attention, about believing that what you notice matters, even when no one else does, especially then. If this story reached you, share where you're watching from.